People think revenge is loud. It isn't. Most of the time, it's quiet. It's patience. It's letting someone believe they've won, until the moment they realize they never did. I'm Adam, and this is Revenge with Adam. They thought I wouldn't notice. That was their mistake. Let me take you back. 6 months before everything changed. It was a Tuesday morning. I remember because Tuesdays were always project review days at the firm. I'd been working there for 3 years. Corporate strategy consulting. Not glamorous, but I was good at it. Really good. I had just finished leading a major client project. Months of work. Late nights, weekend calls. The kind of project that either makes your career or breaks it. We'd exceeded every metric. Client satisfaction scores through the roof. Revenue projections beat by 18%. I was proud. More importantly, I was ready. Ready for the senior consultant promotion that had been dangled in front of me for the past year. That's when I first noticed something was off. The email came from Marcus. Marcus Chen. Technically my peer, though he'd been at the firm 6 months longer than me. We'd worked together on smaller projects before. Cordial? Professional. Or so I thought. The subject line read, "Quick clarification on Henderson project metrics." Innocent enough. But the content was strange. He'd CC'd our department head, Sarah, and 2 of the senior partners. In the email, Marcus asked me to clarify certain numbers in my final report. Numbers that were, according to him, inconsistent with the initial projections. Here's the thing, they weren't inconsistent. I'd triple-checked every figure, every percentage, every projection model. That's just how I work. But Marcus had phrased it carefully, professionally. Just concerned enough to plant a seed of doubt without making an outright accusation. I read the email 3 times. Then I checked my original report. Then I checked the raw data. Then I checked the client feedback forms. Everything was accurate. So why would Marcus do this? I replied calmly, attached the source data, explained the methodology, kept it professional. Sarah responded within an hour. "Thanks for the clarification, Adam. All looks good." Crisis averted. Or so I thought. 2 days later, it happened again. Another email. This time, Marcus had accidentally left me off a planning thread for an upcoming pitch. A pitch I was supposed to be co-leading with him. By the time I was looped in, key decisions had already been made. Decisions that undermined the strategy I'd been developing for weeks. When I brought it up in our team meeting, Marcus apologized profusely. "Oh man, Adam, I'm so sorry. Must have been a glitch in Outlook. You know how it is. I'll make sure to double-check next time." Everyone laughed it off. Technical difficulties. Happens to everyone. But I didn't laugh. Because I'd seen the email metadata. He'd manually removed me from the thread. That's when I knew. This wasn't accidental. This was intentional. This was sabotage. Now, most people, when they realize someone's working against them, they react immediately. They confront, they escalate, they get angry. And I'll be honest, I wanted to. I wanted to walk in Marcus's office and call him out. I wanted to forward those emails to HR. I wanted to make noise. But I didn't. Because anger is predictable. Anger is easy to dismiss. Anger puts you on the defensive. And I wasn't going to play defense. Instead, I opened a new folder on my desktop. I labeled it Documentation. And I started keeping records. Every email, Every meeting note, every project milestone, every contribution I made, every decision Marcus tried to obscure or redirect. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. I just watched, and I documented everything. Over the next month, the pattern became crystal clear. Marcus wasn't just trying to make me look bad. He was positioning himself as the more reliable choice for the promotion. It was sophisticated, I'll give him that. He'd volunteer for high-visibility tasks, then delegate the grunt work to me, work that was essential but wouldn't get noticed by leadership. He'd present our joint work in meetings, using language that subtly centered his contributions while downplaying mine. So I developed this framework, and Adam helped execute some of the preliminary research. Helped execute. Preliminary research. I'd built the entire analytical model, but in his version of events, I was the assistant. Then came the Brennan account. This was big. A potential 12-month contract worth over $2 million. Sarah assigned it to both of us, co-leads, equal responsibility. Marcus suggested we divide the work. He'd handle client relations and strategy. I'd handle data analysis and reporting. Sounds fair, right? Except here's what he didn't tell me. He'd already had 3 separate calls with the client. Calls where he'd positioned himself as the primary contact. Calls where he'd made strategic recommendations without consulting me. By the time I found out, the client thought Marcus was running the show, and I was just the numbers guy. I could have exposed him right then. Could have gone to Sarah. Could have copied the client on an email clarifying roles, but that would have looked petty, territorial, like I couldn't handle collaboration. So instead, I did something smarter. I scheduled my own call with the client. Not to undermine Marcus, not to complain, just to present my analysis directly. Hi Jennifer, this is Adam from the consulting team. I wanted to walk you through some of the data models we've built for your account and get your input on some strategic directions we're considering. Professional, collaborative, value-driven. During that call, I demonstrated depth of knowledge that Marcus simply didn't have. I answered technical questions he deflected. I provided insights he hadn't thought to offer. I didn't criticize him. I didn't even mention him. I just did excellent work. 2 days later, Jennifer sent an email to Sarah, copied both Marcus and me. The subject line, Appreciation for Adam's Strategic Insights. In it, she praised the thoroughness of my analysis, the clarity of my recommendations, and specifically noted how my approach had identified cost-saving opportunities they hadn't previously considered. Marcus was silent for the rest of that day. But he didn't stop. If anything, he escalated. The next incident was more brazen. We had a quarterly review meeting with the senior partners, the kind of meeting where promotions are discussed, where futures are decided. Marcus and I were both scheduled to present updates on our respective
projects. The night before the meeting, I finalized my presentation. 30 slides, data visualizations, client testimonials, impact metrics. I saved it to our shared drive, as was protocol, so Sarah could review it before the morning. When I arrived at the office the next morning, my presentation file was corrupted. Wouldn't open. Error messages everywhere. I tried recovery tools, tried opening it on different computers. Nothing worked. The meeting was in 2 hours. Now, here's where most people would panic, would blame IT, would apologize and ask to reschedule. But I'd learned to anticipate problems. The night before, I'd also emailed myself a backup copy. And I'd saved a PDF version to a USB drive. And I'd printed a hard copy of the key slides. Redundancy. Always have redundancy. I rebuilt the presentation in 90 minutes. Delivered it flawlessly. The partners were impressed. But here's what I noticed. Marcus seemed surprised that I'd managed to present it all. Actually surprised. Not relieved. Not supportive. Surprised. After the meeting, I went back to my desk and did something I'd been avoiding. Something I'd told myself was paranoid. I checked the metadata on the corrupted file. The file had been accessed at 11:47 p.m. the previous night. From Marcus's workstation. The modification that corrupted it? a deliberate insertion of malformed code into the XML structure of the PowerPoint file. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a technical glitch. This was sabotage. Deliberate. Calculated. Malicious. I sat there, staring at my screen, feeling something shift inside me. Up until that moment, I told myself maybe I was overreacting. Maybe Marcus was just competitive. Maybe his actions were thoughtless rather than malicious. But this crossed a line. I could have gone to HR right then, could have presented the evidence, could have gotten him fired. And part of me wanted to. Part of me wanted to watch him escorted out of the building with a box of his belongings, everyone whispering about what he'd done. But I didn't, because firing him would have been mercy. Quick. Clean. Over. He'd walk away, find another job, tell himself and everyone else that I'd gotten him fired out of jealousy or spite. He'd be the victim in his own story. No, I wanted something different. I wanted him to fail on his own terms. I wanted the truth to emerge naturally, undeniably, in a way that left no room for excuses or alternative narratives. So I took a screenshot of the metadata, added it to my documentation folder, and I kept working. The thing about systematic sabotage is that it requires constant effort. Marcus had to stay vigilant, had to keep finding new ways to undermine me, had to maintain the facade of professionalism while continuously working against me. It's exhausting, and exhaustion leads to mistakes. Me? I just had to do my job. Do it well, document everything, and wait. I started making subtle changes to how I worked. When Marcus and I had shared deliverables, I'd send him drafts, sure, but I'd also send copies to my personal email with timestamps. When we had meetings, I'd follow up with written summaries, just to make sure we're aligned, and copy
Relevant stakeholders. Not in an obvious way, not in a cover-your-ass way that would raise eyebrows, just thorough, professional, diligent. The kind of communication patterns that excellent employees develop naturally. I also started building relationships more intentionally. Not with manipulation, not with office politics, just genuine connection. I'd grab coffee with colleagues from other departments, ask about their projects, offer help when they needed technical expertise, share interesting articles, remember birthdays. I worked with Keisha from the analytics team on a pro bono project for a local nonprofit, completely outside my job responsibilities just because it was meaningful work. I helped James from business development prep for a major pitch, even though it had nothing to do with my accounts. I wasn't building alliances for some calculated reason. I was just being a good colleague, a good person. But here's what happens when you do that consistently. People notice, people remember, people trust you. Meanwhile, Marcus's behavior was starting to show cracks. In meetings, when asked about project details, he'd sometimes fumble. He'd rely on generalities when specifics were needed. He'd promise deliverables that I'd end up having to complete because he'd overcommitted. Other people were starting to notice too. Not the sabotage, that was still invisible to most, but the pattern of Marcus claiming credit for work that seemed beyond his demonstrated expertise. The pattern of projects running smoother when I was leading versus when he was. Sarah started assigning me more independent projects, higher stakes accounts, the kind of work that signaled trust and confidence. Then came the Westfield proposal. Westfield Industries was the white whale, a Fortune 500 company looking to completely overhaul their operational strategy, the kind of contract that would define our firm's year, maybe our next several years. Every consultant in our division wanted a piece of it. Sarah called Marcus and me into her office on a Friday afternoon. "Gentlemen," she said, "I'm giving you both a chance. I want separate proposals for the Westfield account. You'll each have 3 weeks. Present to the partners on May 15th. Best proposal wins the project lead role. And I'll be honest, this will heavily influence the promotion decision." Marcus smiled, shook her hand. "I won't let you down, Sarah." I nodded, thanked her for the opportunity. Inside, I was calculating. 3 weeks. That was enough time for Marcus to sabotage me. Enough time for him to try to access my files, undermine my approach, maybe even poison the well with the client. But it was also enough time for me to build something undeniable.
I spent that entire weekend researching Westfield. Not just surface-level research, deep investigation. I read every annual report from the past decade, every earnings call transcript, every piece of industry analysis. I studied their competitors, their supply chain, their market position. I identified inefficiencies in their operations that they probably didn't even know existed. I built financial models showing exactly how much money they were losing to those inefficiencies. I developed 3 separate strategic frameworks, each addressing different aspects of their business.
Then I did something most consultants don't do. I reached out to people who'd worked at Westfield, former employees, industry contacts. I conducted informal interviews, 23 of them over the course of 2 weeks. I learned about their corporate culture, their decision-making processes, the personalities of their executive team, what motivated them, what frustrated them. I learned that their CEO, Richard Westfield, was a third-generation owner who cared deeply about legacy and sustainability, not just quarterly profits. I learned that their CFO was numbers-driven, but skeptical of consultants who promised too much. I learned that their COO was innovative, but risk-averse, needing detailed implementation plans before buying into any strategy. Armed with that knowledge, I tailored my proposal. Not just the content, the entire structure, the language, the framing. I addressed Richard's legacy concerns by showing how the proposed changes would position Westfield for long-term growth. I backed every recommendation with rigorous data to satisfy the CFO. I included detailed implementation roadmaps with risk mitigation strategies for the COO. It was 147 pages, every page earned. Meanwhile, I watched Marcus. I didn't spy, didn't sneak, just observed. He was working hard, I'll give him that. Late nights, lots of meetings. But I noticed something. He was focused on presentation, on polish, on making his proposal look good rather than making it substantively excellent. He'd print draft slides and review them in the break room, asking colleagues for feedback on colors and fonts. He'd practice his pitch in empty conference rooms, perfecting his gestures and tone. Style over substance. A week before the presentation, something interesting happened. I arrived at work early one morning, 6 a.m., before most people, and found Marcus at my desk. Actually at my desk. Standing there, looking at my computer screen. "Marcus." He jumped. Actually jumped. "Oh, Adam. Hey man, I thought you left some notes from our last project meeting and I needed to reference something from my Westfield proposal." My computer was locked. The screen showed nothing but the login prompt. "My computer's locked," I said calmly. "Right, yeah, I just realized that. I'll just email you later." He left quickly, too quickly. I sat down and checked my desk. Everything appeared normal. But when I logged in, I noticed something. Someone had tried to access my files. 4 failed login attempts between 5:47 and 5:53 a.m. 4 attempts to guess my password. He'd failed, obviously. My password was randomly generated, 20 characters, stored in an encrypted password manager. But he'd tried. I took screenshots of the login logs, added them to my documentation folder, and I felt something crystallize inside me. This wasn't about competition anymore. This wasn't about promotion. This was about character, about who we were as professionals, as people. And I was going to make sure everyone knew exactly who Marcus Chen really was. May 15th arrived. The presentation was scheduled for 2 p.m. in the main conference room. All partners would attend. Sarah would moderate. Marcus would present first. Then me. I arrived 15 minutes early. Set up my laptop. Tested the projector. Reviewed my notes one final time. Marcus arrived 10 minutes early, looking confident. Expensive suit. New haircut. He nodded at me. "May the best proposal win." I smiled. Agreed. The partners filed in. 6 of them. Combined, they represented over 150 years of consulting experience. They'd seen every trick, every strategy, every attempt to impress them. They weren't easy to fool.
Sarah opened the meeting. Gentlemen, thank you for your preparation. Marcus, you're up first. Marcus's presentation was slick. Professionally designed slides. Smooth delivery. He talked about synergies and optimization, about innovation and transformation. He used all the right buzzwords. The partners listened politely, took notes, asked a few clarifying questions. When he finished, there was measured applause. Thank you, Marcus, Sarah said. Adam, you're up. I stood, connected my laptop, brought up my first slide. It wasn't flashy, just a simple title. Westfield Industries, a strategic roadmap for sustainable growth. Thank you all for your time. I began. Over the past 3 weeks, I've conducted extensive research into Westfield's operations, market position, and organizational culture. What I'm about to present isn't theoretical. It's actionable, data-driven, and tailored specifically to Westfield's unique challenges and opportunities. I walked them through my analysis. Not quickly, not superficially, thoroughly. I showed them the inefficiencies I'd identified, quantified the cost, demonstrated the opportunity. I presented 3 strategic frameworks, explaining why I developed multiple approaches. Different organizations need different solutions. Part of our job is helping clients understand which approach aligns with their values and capabilities. I addressed risk, implementation challenges, change management. I didn't promise easy wins. I promised honest, effective partnership. Then I did something Marcus hadn't. I showed them testimonials. Not generic client praise. Specific feedback from people I'd worked with at Westfield. Former employees I'd interviewed who'd agreed to provide candid assessments. This is what people who know Westfield say about what they need. This is how we meet those needs. The room was silent when I finished. Not awkward silence. Focused silence. The partners weren't just impressed. They were convinced. Michael Chen, one of the senior partners, spoke first. Adam, this is exceptional work. The level of detail, the strategic thinking, this is exactly what we need to win this contract. Others nodded, asked questions, thoughtful questions. Questions that showed they were already thinking about implementation. Sarah was taking notes rapidly.
After 20 minutes of discussion, she called time. Thank you both. We'll deliberate and provide our decision by end of week. As people filed out, several partners stopped to shake my hand, to compliment the work. Marcus left quickly. That evening, Sarah called me into her office. Close the door, Adam. I sat down, trying to read her expression. I'm not supposed to tell you this before we make the formal announcement, she said. But you're getting the Westfield project. And the promotion. The partners were unanimous. I felt relief. Validation. But also something else. Curiosity. Can I ask you something? Of course. Of course. Did the partners notice the difference in substance between my proposal and Marcus's? Sarah paused. Chose her words carefully. Adam, I'm going to be honest with you. We've been watching you both closely. Marcus is talented. He's got good instincts. But over the past few months, we've noticed a pattern. His work is polished but often lacks depth. Your work consistently demonstrates rigor and strategic insight. Today's presentations confirmed what we'd already been observing. She leaned forward. There's something else. 2 weeks ago, Keisha from Analytics came to me. She mentioned that Marcus had asked her to access some of your project files, claiming he needed them for a comparative analysis. She found it odd and wanted to verify it was legitimate.
My heart rate quickened. What did you tell her? I told her to decline the request and document it. Then I started paying closer attention. Sarah pulled out a folder. Opened it. Inside were printouts, email logs, access records. Marcus has been systematically attempting to access your work. We've documented at least 7 instances over the past 2 months. When I confronted him about it yesterday, he claimed it was for competitive research, that he was trying to understand your methodology. She closed the folder. Adam, I need to ask you directly. Has Marcus done anything else that's concerned you? This was it. The moment I'd been preparing for. I could have unloaded everything. Could have opened my documentation folder and buried Marcus with evidence. Could have recounted every incident, every act of sabotage, every underhanded move. But I didn't. Sarah, I focused on doing my job well. If Marcus has been engaged in behavior that concerns the firm, that's for you and the partners to address. I trust your judgment. She studied me for a long moment. You know, don't you? You know what he's been doing. I met her gaze. I've noticed some things. Yes. But you didn't come to me. Didn't complain. Didn't retaliate. No. Why not? I paused. Because the best response to someone trying to sabotage you is to make their sabotage irrelevant. I couldn't control what Marcus did. I could only control the quality of my own work. So that's what I focused on. Sarah smiled. Actually smiled. That's exactly the kind of judgment and maturity we need in senior leadership, Adam. You made the right call. She stood. Extended her hand. Congratulations. You've earned this. Thank you, Sarah. As I left her office, I saw Marcus at his desk. He looked up. Our eyes met. And in that moment, he knew. Knew he'd lost. Knew why he'd lost. Knew that all his schemes, all his sabotage, all his calculated moves had accomplished nothing except revealing his own character. I didn't gloat, didn't smirk, just gave him a small nod and kept walking.
3 months later, Marcus left the firm. It was framed as a mutual decision, an opportunity elsewhere. But everyone knew. Word spreads in professional circles. People talk, not through gossip, through patterns, through reputations, through the quiet understanding that some people build careers on merit, and others try to build them on manipulation. I led the Westfield project. It was a massive success. 18-month engagement. Revenue exceeded projections. Client satisfaction scores were the highest our firm had recorded in 5 years. Richard Westfield personally wrote a letter to our managing partner praising the partnership. The work I did on that project opened doors, led to other opportunities, built my reputation in ways I couldn't have anticipated. But here's what I want you to understand. This story isn't really about Marcus. It's not even really about the promotion. It's about something deeper. It's about who you choose to be when someone's working against you. When someone's trying to undermine everything you've built. You have choices in those moments. You can meet sabotage with sabotage. Fight fire with fire. Descend to their level. Or you can rise above it. Not by ignoring it, not by being naive, but by making their sabotage irrelevant through the undeniable quality of your work. By building something so solid, so well documented, so excellent that no amount of manipulation can tear it down. That's what real revenge looks like. It's not destruction. It's not humiliation. It's letting the truth speak for itself. It's patience. Documentation. Excellence. And the quiet satisfaction of knowing that when the moment came, when everything was laid bare, there was no question about who deserved to succeed. People think revenge is loud, but the most powerful revenge is silence. Is watching someone's schemes crumble under the weight of your undeniable competence. Is knowing that years from now, they'll remember this moment. Remember how they lost. Not because you destroyed them, but because you simply outworked them, outsmarted them, and outprofessionaled them at every turn. That's revenge. Real revenge. The kind that echoes long after the noise fades. This was Revenge with Adam. Until next time. Remember, the strongest revenge isn't chaotic. It isn't loud. It's patient. It's precise. And when it lands, it echoes far longer than any shout ever could.